Now, when it comes to other beings in the cosmos, other dimensions, they also have choice. They also can be deceived and were deceived into making choices that followed a wrong path, which was independence from God. Now, their restoration is somewhat aligned to our restoration, in that they were created, our sonship and the sons of God and the earth within our creation have a special place within God's economy. There are no other sons of God like us who are made in the image and likeness of God, with God's DNA in that way. Now, there are other beings created, manifesting aspects of God's character and nature, creative ability. I mean, some of the things are downright weird and not humanoid. But God is, look at the plants and the animals and the insects and just so much diversity and amazing sense of creativity. So the other dimensions are equally as creative in many different ways. And those beings who now are basically saying, well, we didn't make this decision to follow our ancestors, just like I didn't make the decision to do what Adam and Eve did. They did. I don't carry their original thing. What I've done is because I've chosen to do it myself. Can't blame Adam. What I did was die in Adam, and everyone died in Adam, but now everyone's alive in Christ. So I don't believe in original sin, that in some way Adam has passed some sin nature to me. No, what he's done is Adam brought the whole of humanity into, or mankind into, lost identity. And out of the fact that I don't know who I am, I make decisions based on the wrong identity. And I do it out of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in humanism. So from that perspective, now I am now operating out of the tree of life and not the knowledge of the tree and evil. So I don't want to make decisions based on independence. I want to do things in relationship with God. So every other being out there has also been deceived into following a path which was not God's original intention for them. But others didn't. There are other dimensions that haven't been fallen, and there are other beings that haven't fallen and never were deceived, and they still are there wanting to serve the purpose of God and help us. But there are some who were, but they're races, not beings. So angels are created beings, created individually in orders, but they weren't two angels, male and female, formed all the other angels. Humanity is a race. Those other dimensions are races. So they did have reproduction and were reproducing after their original people who actually produced their race, and therefore they can be restored. And there are people today who didn't choose to go down that path and now want to undo what their ancestors have done and follow the right path. So for me, that's the restoration. They want to know the story, the love story, because they know that God is love. And they may have lost sight of that within the cultures in which they live, which are very, very restrictive cultures and horrible things that they're under. But it's our responsibility to bring hope to them and sonship. And so our sonship frequency is reaching the dimensions and bringing hope, which is why they're asking to meet us and find the restoration that comes through Jesus. Because there's only one story. It's the story of God's love for creation and in sending Jesus, who created everything, to bring about the reconciliation of everything through the blood of the cross, which was a willing surrendering of his life to bring life to everything that died. So you could say that every race died in their Adam and Eve, okay? Because they had an Adam and Eve, if you like, even though they didn't all look like Adam and Eve, but they had their original ancestors who led them, if they did fall, into following the wrong path. They followed the creature rather than the creator, and they ended up being deceived into that path and being drawn into a Luciferian agenda, which was not kingdom. So ultimately, they all died in their Adam and Eve, and they're all made alive in Christ. and have been reconciled. We need the gospel, good news of that reconciliation to reach them. So we're still ambassadors of reconciliation to other dimensions and other beings and other fallen angels. But fallen angels were not races. They were individually created beings. So I believe that every dimensional race has already been born from above, like we have. They just don't know it yet, and they're still living in the darkness of deception, like most people on earth are still living in the darkness then, because Jesus reconciled them. He reconciled the whole cosmos to himself. He reconciled all that he created through the blood of the cross in Colossians. So I believe that the finished work of the cross is finished for every dimension as well as for every fallen angelic being. We just have to reach them and bring them into the realization of what God has already done, which has already forgiven them.